had my hand around Ren Osticky's collar and my boot on the crate he'd tried to drag past me when I triggered the beacon. That part matters. I wanted on the record that I did not mean to call anyone but my own guild. The crate was mine by right of salvage. Coil's ledger had been drifting in the debris lane for 6 years, gutted, it hull spun slow against the dark, and everyone in the Vashtia clan guild knew the old hauler belonged to whoever logged the claim first. I logged it first. Ren's crew came in 9 hours later and started stripping it anyway, because Ren had always operated on the theory that paperwork was a suggestion. So there I was, fist in his collar, debt ledger open on my wrist display, doing what any guild quartermaster does when a rival crew tries to jump a claim. I hit the recovery beacon. Not a weapon. A formality. A guild recovery beacon logs the dispute, timestamps the claim, and summons guild arbitration if things go past shouting. I'd used it 11 times in my career. It had never once summoned anything but a bored arbitration clerk and a fine for whoever started it. This time it summoned 3 ships from a species I had never personally dealt with in 18 years of guild work. I want to be precise about the sequence, because the report I eventually filed got it wrong in 3 places and I'm tired of correcting people. The beacon fired on the Vashtia Guild registry band, like it always had. It should have stopped there. But Coil's ledger was old, older than my crew, older than the debris lane's official survey, and its hull still carried a secondary transponder array from before the reunification accords, back when half the clan guilds were still arguing about whether they even wanted a unified registry. That array hadn't been live in decades. Nobody checks decommissioned transponders. Why would they? My beacon signal hit that dead array on its way out, and the dead array did exactly what it was built to do 30 years before I was guild rated. It relayed onto a recovery and reunification frequency that had been folded into a treaty so old most active guild officers had never read past its title page. A treaty that, among several hundred clauses nobody remembered agreeing to, listed mutual salvage recovery obligations for any signatory detecting a guild-registered claim dispute in distress. Earth was a signatory. I did not know that. Ren did not know that. The arbitration clerk we eventually talked to did not know that either, and she'd been doing this for 19 years. 40 minutes after I let go of Ren's collar, we'd both gone quiet, staring at our wrist displays as 4 new contacts bloomed on the short-range scope. 3 ships dropped out of trance at a comfortable, professional distance off the ledger's bow. Not weapons hot. Not posturing. They came in the way you come in when you've done this 900 times and you're not impressed by anyone's debris field. A tow tender. A salvage hauler twice the ledger's mass, scarred along one flank the particular way hulls scar when they've spent a career nosing into wrecks other crews wouldn't touch. And behind both, riding loose escort, a single corvette, compact, unbranded, running lights at half power because there was nothing out here worth lighting up for. Ren said, very quietly, "That's not guild registry." "No," I said. "It is not." The hail came through clean, no fanfare, a voice that sounded like it had said this exact sentence on 40 other wrecks. "Coil's ledger, this is the recovery vessel Halvard's Reach, responding to a registered salvage claim dispute under reunification accord, Article 9, mutual recovery provision. We have your beacon. We have your registry tag. We are inbound to assist arbitration and stabilize the whole pending claim resolution. This will take about 6 hours. Please clear the forward dock." 6 hours. Like we'd called a tow service. Like 3 ships from a species with, I checked later, and I am still annoyed about the number, a presence in this sector that outclassed our entire clan guild's combined salvage fleet, had simply been sitting close enough to answer a paperwork dispute between me and a man I'd been feuding with since we were both junior crew. "We didn't call you," I said. It came out flatter than I meant it to. I logged a guild beacon. Internal. Clan registry only. A pause. Not a long one. The kind a professional takes when they're deciding whether the correction changes the job. "Copy that, quartermaster. Your beacon relayed through a decommissioned pre-reunification transponder on your own hull, which broadcasts on a band we are treaty-bound to monitor. The obligation doesn't care whether you meant to reach us. It only cares whether the signal qualifies. It qualifies." Another pause. Honestly, half our call log looks like this. I did not have a response to that. Ren, beside me, had gone the particular still of a man recalculating every assumption he'd built his career on. The Halvard's Reach didn't wait for permission it considered itself already owed. It came in low along the ledger spine, found the forward dock, and the salvage hauler, turns patience, the name finally resolving on my scope as it crept closer, extended grapple lines to the wreck's structural ribs with the kind of unhurried precision that told you this crew had stabilized worse hulls in worse debris fields without losing a finger. I went out to meet them. Pride, mostly, and the guild requirement that a disputing party be physically present for arbitration. Ren came too, because he wasn't going to let me represent the dispute alone, and because under all the swagger he was as rattled as I was. The boarding party was 4 people and one of those squat utility drones that looks like it could either fix your reactor or arrest you, depending on programming. Their lead, human, grey at the temples, the kind of tired that comes from doing a job well for a long time rather than from doing it badly, looked at the open crate between Ren's crew and mine, looked at the ledger on my wrist display, and said, "This the disputed cargo?" "It's mine," I said. "Logged first." "It's mine because possession is 9/10 of guild law," Ren said, in the tone of a man citing a rule he'd just invented. The human, recovery officer, her insignia said, "No rank theatre beyond that," crouched by the crate without touching it. Pre-collapse hull plating, 3 salvage grade processes, and what looks like a partial cargo manifest from before the ledger went dark. She glanced up. "Either of you actually know what's in the sealed half?" Neither of us did. That was, in fact, the entire root of the feud. 6 years of mutual certainty that the other crew was about to find something valuable, and neither of us had ever cracked the inner seal because the breach tools needed for it cost more than the crate was rumored to be worth. The recovery officer's drone did it in 90 seconds. The kind of unglamorous competence I'd later learn was the entire personality of every human crew I dealt with after this. Inside, a dormant data core, guild tagged, registered to a crew that had filed it as recovered but unclaimed before the ledger went dark 6 years prior. Not treasure. A records archive, cargo manifests, crew logs, a partial map of debris lane salvage rights going back 2 decades. Worth something to historians. Worth nothing to either of us. We had spent 6 years and most of our professional dignity fighting over a box of paperwork. Ren made a sound I will charitably describe as a laugh. "Per Article 9, the recovery officer said, standing, brushing dust off her knee like this was any Tuesday, "we don't adjudicate claim ownership. That's still your guild's call. We stabilize, we secure, and we file a recovery report confirming the dispute was registered and resolved without hull loss or injury." She looked between us. "You want it on record that nobody got shot over an inventory archive?" "Yes," I said, before Ren could find a way to make it sound more dignified than that. "It took them 5 hours, not 6. The tow tender braced the ledger spine while the salvage hauler ran structural patches that would let the wreck survive transit to an actual guild dock instead of disintegrating quietly the way it had been threatening to for years. 2 hours in, the corvette finally moved. Not for us. A debris lane scavenger crew, independents, unregistered, the kind that circle any active recovery site hoping to strip a hull mid-job before guild law can object, drifted in close enough to start cutting into the ledger's aft section while everyone's attention was on the dispute up front. I hadn't even noticed them. The corvette had, apparently, noticed them the moment they dropped out of transit, and simply hadn't said anything about it until they crossed a line only its sensors could see. It didn't fire. It didn't need to. It moved between the scavengers and the wreck with the unhurried certainty of something that had done this exact maneuver more times than I'd had hot meals, broadcast one flat warning about unregistered salvage interference with an active recovery operation, and waited. The scavengers left inside of 90 seconds. The corvette drifted back to its original position, running lights still at half power, like it had never moved at all. "They'd have stripped your aft hold bare in 20 minutes, the recovery officer said, when I asked her about it afterward. "Probably wouldn't have hurt anyone. Probably would have cost you the back third of the ledger's resale value. We don't get paid more for stopping that. We just don't like leaving a job half protected because the part of the dispute we are here for is the loud part." It simply sat there, off our flank, doing nothing else for the rest of the patchwork, which I came to understand was itself the job, a deterrent so unbothered it didn't need to look like one until the moment it did. Near the end, while her crew finished the last patch, the recovery officer found me alone at the dock rail, watching the data core get crated properly for the first time in 6 years. "You're allowed to ask," she said. "Ask what?" "Why we came. Most claimants want to know why 3 ships and 40 minutes of transit time got spent on a paperwork fight between 2 guild quartermasters." "I assumed it was the treaty," I said. "Article 9. "It's the treaty." She leaned on the rail beside me, not unfriendly, not warm either, the specific neutral of someone explaining a job they didn't choose but didn't resent. but the treaty's just the reason we're allowed to come. The reason we actually come is that somebody signed something a long time ago saying if your beacon reaches us, we show up and we do the boring work properly. Doesn't matter if you meant to call us. Doesn't matter if it's a war or an inventory dispute. The obligation's the same size either way. That seems like a strange way to run a treaty. It's a strange treaty, she agreed. Reunification was a strange decade. Half the clauses in it exist because somebody was trying to make sure nobody could ever say later that they hadn't been warned, or hadn't been helped. We don't get to pick which. She nodded at the crate. For what it's worth, Article 9 doesn't care that it was over a box of old manifests. It would have sent the same 3 ships if it had been a hull breach with 40 crew dying inside. The job's not graded on how important the cargo turns out to be. It's graded on whether the hull survives and nobody gets left holding a grudge that turns into a casualty count. I looked at Ren, who had gone very quiet at the rail 20 feet down, listening. We didn't aim it at you, I said. I want that understood. I fired a guild beacon at my own registry. I have never, in 18 years, intended to summon anything from outside the clan guild structure. I believe you, the recovery officer said. Doesn't change the obligation. That's sort of the point of a treaty nobody's supposed to have to think about. It's not for the calls you mean to make. It's for the ones that get through anyway. They finished the patchwork as the light cycle on the debris lane's nearest illuminated body shifted toward what passed for evening out there. Long, flat, gold-grey light through the Rex-crack viewports, the kind that made even a gutted hauler look almost dignified. The Halvard's Reach logged its recovery report, copied it to both our guild registries without being asked, and the 3 ships peeled off the way they'd arrived. Unhurried, unbothered, no announcement. Ren caught up to me as I watched their drive trails fade. You going to write this up? He asked. I have to. Guild requires an incident report for any cross-registry response. Make it boring, he said. If it's boring, nobody above us decides we need a policy about it. I wrote it as boring as I honestly could. I described the beacon, the dead transponder, the relay, the treaty clause, the data core, the 5 hours, the patchwork. I left out the part where the recovery officer told me the obligation didn't care what I'd meant. I left it out because it was the only part that mattered, and I didn't trust myself to write it the way it deserved. The Clan Guild fined us both for the dispute, same as it would have without any of this. Ren and I split the Recovered Archive's modest historical registry fee down the middle, which was the first thing we'd agreed on in 6 years. The ledger got towed to proper salvage 2 months later by a guild crew that had never heard of Earth's Article 9 and never needed to. I still have the recovery officer's closing line in my own log, separate from the official report, because I didn't want to lose it to the next time someone above me decided the file needed trimming. She'd said it standing at the dock rail, watching her crew finish, not looking at me when she said it. We didn't come because you called us, right? We came because you called, and the paperwork said that was enough. I never triggered that beacon again without checking what else was listening. I checked the ledger's old transponder logs first, out of habit, the way you check a stove you've already turned off. It's a small thing. It's the thing I actually changed.